Hey, what's up everybody, Retro Gaming Guy here. Today in this video we're going to unbox, demo, and review this retro game console that I found on Amazon. So this is a 64GB retro game console, plug and play with over 10,000 retro video games. So we're going to unbox this, we'll take a closer look at what it has to offer us once we actually boot into it, and then we'll also give it a performance test to see what the experience is like. Let's dive into it. Alright guys, so let's dive in here, see what we have. So right on top I see the console sitting here. I'm going to go ahead and set that aside, see what else is included in here. So we have one controller, two controllers, we have a TV remote, power supply cable, and we have an HDMI cable. We also have a user manual right here. So as we open this up, it just walks through how you can set up your Wi-Fi connection to get this connected to the internet. Also tells you how you can make upgrades on here. So backside it shows you how to go ahead and make your different connections. So it definitely covers your bases. Let's dive in here and see what we have for controllers. So PlayStation 2 style controllers, they are wireless, and let's see, I believe they're going to run on AAA batteries. Let me just open this up. All right. Yep, so they're going to run on AAA batteries. I'll set that one aside. And let's see. We have, not seeing a wireless dongle here, but we have an HDMI cable. Oh, here it is. It's plugged into the console already. All right, so here's our actual console. Now, I've seen these TV box sort of game consoles before. This is definitely the smallest one I've ever seen. I mean, we're at about barely an inch in terms of thickness here. And then I would say this is about 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches, if I had to guess. We have two USB ports on the side, one of which already has the receiver for the controllers, and it's going to be one USB receiver for two controllers that are included. We also have right here our micro SD card, and if I take that out, it is 64 gigabytes, just like what is advertised. And I don't know if you guys can see, it's really small, but we have the same graphic that we have on the top of the console on there. So definitely like the way that that's laid out. And we also have, so that gives us one open USB port here. Probably have to use my knife to sink that back in. And I actually like that it's difficult to engage and disengage, because you don't want to risk accidentally ejecting that while the console is actually turned on. Now, if we go to the front of this, we have the top here. Front has nothing, left side has nothing. Back side's where you're going to find your power supply port. So you plug your power supply cable in. We have our Ethernet port, HDMI port, our audio ports as well. So you could plug in speakers if you wanted to, I assume, or certainly headphones would be, a good way to approach this if you wanted to, bring your audio in that way rather than through HDMI to your TV or monitor. So we're going to go ahead and set this up, and we'll power it on and see what the layout is like on here, and then give it a full performance test. All right, guys, so here we are inside of the gaming side of things here. So we're going to kick everything off in the all games list. Let's just take a quick tour through everything. So we have 36,574 total games on here. Now that's interesting because in the Amazon listing, it advertises over 10,000. So 36,000, much higher than 10,000, obviously. So that definitely fits. But why wouldn't they advertise 36,000 if they're advertising, over 10,000? That would be the more attractive way to market this. Definitely a red flag. I mean, I think that's probably going to lead us to us finding that there's a ton of duplicates on here. And let's take a look. We'll scroll through here real quick, and let's see. We have Warriors of Fate in here twice right off the bat. We have Dinosaurs in here twice. So we're not off to a great start in terms of there being just a ton of duplicates. So just kind of scrolling through here, and another thing I'll point out, nothing's in alphabetical order, so very hard to actually navigate this. We would have to search, and I'm noticing now, obviously we have the text list for our games on the left-hand side. Right-hand side, we have the scrape data there, so we have a little screenshot from each of the titles, which seems to match up nicely with the titles. I'll give them credit there for sure. And then we also have a little diagram of our controls while navigating through the menus. And I do notice that there's a search function on what would be the triangle, but this controller has A, B, X, and Y, so this would be Y on here. So let's actually go in here and search for some games. So what's a good game to search for? Let's go with WrestleFest. I'm actually a big fan of WrestleFest. It's one of my favorite classic arcade games. So since everything is not in alphabetical order, I think this will be, the best way to actually navigate this. if you're going in, you know, searching for something specific. So we'll just type in WrestleFest. Actually, that's one. I typed it as 2 words, but is WrestleFest 1 word or 2 words? It should be 2. No, 1 word. This might not actually bring anything out. No, it is. Okay, so they have it as 2 words. I'm pretty sure WrestleFest is 1 word though, but okay. And this proves my point right there, right off the bat. Up at the top, our search result pulls back 20 results. And right here on page 1, we have 10. And that means that there's 10 versions of the same game. Now let's go through. There should be only 1 version of this game. It was released for arcade. You know, it wasn't released on any home consoles. So why we have 20 is beyond me. And as we scroll down, I'm noticing that on the right-hand side, that image is not changing at all. It's literally the same exact thing. Wow, 20 times over. All right. That's beyond excessive. So yeah, that's why they're not advertising 30,000 plus games. They're advertising 10,000 plus because they know that they've added in tons of duplicates. And that's just one example. So, I mean, we'll scan through here and we'll kind of gauge everything. So let's go through the individual collections. So NES right here, 757 games for NES. That's not, you know, not a red flag or anything. That's very much in line with what you would typically find on something like this. So you probably won't find a ton of duplicates in this collection, but let's, you know, take a peek. So it doesn't give you, one thing I will point out is that it doesn't necessarily give you the entire title of the games. So like this one, for example, it does, but there's some that are abbreviated. So that does make it a little bit challenging if you were to go in and, you know, go through the search. So like Double Dragon, for example, this is the sequel. So they just put Double Dragon 2, but they didn't put out like the full name. So it's not a huge deal for me, but worth mentioning. You know, same thing over here. You know, Ninja Gaiden 2 has a much longer name, its true title, but I mean, it gets you through. I mean, I'm certainly nitpicking, but this is stuff that is worth, you know, mentioning. So, all right. Again, doesn't seem to be littered with duplicates so far anyways, but the fact that everything is not in alphabetical order means that they could be hiding duplicates in here because you wouldn't necessarily have them all in a row, again, because it's not in alphabetical order. But let's say that we came in here. So what's the most popular NES game? Probably one of the Super Mario games, right? How would we locate that if we didn't do that search? We would literally have to go through here and just hope to stumble across it because, I mean, you have M to J to M again. We got a bunch of M's, then a Dragon Strike title, so another D title, a P title, a T title, just all over the place. So let me go in here and actually search for, we'll just type in Super, and that should pull up our Super Mario titles. And we'll also find out if there's, oh, okay, so there's a lot more. What? 825, that's more games than there were in the collection. All right, so all right. So our search is searching from the master list. It's not searching within the individual collection. So that sucks. We can't use that then within collections because I was thinking I was just going to save time in the NES collection. But obviously it gave us 825 titles that have Super in the title, and there's only 757 in this collection. So it's just pulling from, you know, the master list, not the individual collection that we're within. So another unfortunate thing here. Let's just go up the other way. Oh, there we go. Look at that. We saved a ton of time because if I went through this title by title in order, it's look at this. It's literally the last 3 options. We have Super Mario at 755, Super Mario Brothers 2 at 756, and then Super Mario Brothers, or Mario Brothers rather, World at 757. So, you know what? Instead of doing the demos at the end of this, let me just jump into them as I tour through this. Let's jump into one of the Super Mario games. Let's go into Super Mario Brothers. So we're getting a little error message at the bottom there. I'm not sure if that's going to be a problem, but let's dive into this and hopefully everything works at least, and you know we have a good experience. All right, so our movement's not bad. Just trying to gauge whether there's like any lags or delays. And I know I'm making you cringe right now with my skills on this game. I'm just trying to see if there's any lags or anything. Seems to be It does seem like there is a slight lag, honestly. It's very slight. Let me go back in here, though. Just trying to gauge this. It's very slight. I mean, there is a lag there, and it's probably due to the controllers, honestly, but you know, it's nothing insane, but there definitely is a is a lag here. Yeah, see, I'm not, exceptional at this game. Trust me, I'm more of a Sonic guy, but I wouldn't have bounced into him, if there wasn't a slight lag on here. All right, so not a bad experience, but, not phenomenal by any means. All right, so let's back out of this collection. So 757 and NES. We're not noticing any duplicates in that collection, but we know off of searching for WWF WrestleFest that there are a lot of potential duplicates throughout this. So PS1 is over here with 53 titles, so not a massive collection. Let's go through this one by one. So we got Tekken 3 at the top, which is one of my favorite PS1 games. We got Ace Combat 2 and 3. Ridge Racer, it's a good game. Resident Evil Director's Cut. Twisted Metal, Destruction Derby, Grand Theft Auto. Definitely some good stuff in here. Alone in the Dark, Alundra 2. A couple Army Man games. Batman Forever, Beyond the Beyond. Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain. A couple Breath of Fire titles. Bugs Bunny, Lost in Time's a good one. All right, so, and that was what, Driver 2 at the end? Nice. Just disc 1 of Driver 2. I don't remember, yeah, I'm not sure if I remember Driver 2. I remember Driver for sure. All right, so we'll jump in here and we'll actually test out Tekken 3 because I want to see what Tekken 3 is all about. So it seems to be starting right up. Definitely not really a clear picture there. The resolution seems really, honestly, like pixelated and foggy, and that could be because they've by default stretched it to 16:9, but I stretch all my games for the most part these days, and I guess it doesn't look as bad right here. This doesn't look too bad. That opening scene looked really pixelated, though. All right, let's go as Yoshimitsu. Hopefully we don't have any lags or delays here. Let's see what it's all about.
Round 1. Fight.
Definitely feel a lag here. Yeah, it's intermittent though. All right, let's do the next round. Like, it's not bad here, and then once action starts on screen, I feel like it definitely gets sluggish. All right, so let's back out of that. And so every time I back out, I hit start and select. This little menu pops up, and then I just go down to quick game. And I confirm that with A on here, or what would be X on a typical PlayStation controller. All right, so let's back out of PS1. So slight, it's not a flawless experience by any means. All right, so the next collection here is PSP. Now, if you're having any sort of issues with PS1, PSP is going to be a no-go. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say that there's no case ever where I've jumped into anything and had an issue with PS1 and PSP was flawless. So I'm just expecting there to be a disaster in here, but let's see what we've got. So 93 games, so it's a decent selection. Now, these games take up a decent amount of space. This is a 64 gigabyte setup. I would go out on a limb and say that there's probably a lot of PSP mini games in here, but we've got right off the bat some full-scale PSP games. Tekken 6, one of my all-time favorites as well. God of War, Chains of Olympus, great title. Assassin's Creed is good as well. So these are all, full-scale PSP games, but just looking at the list, I see here come the PSP minis. And these are pretty much all PSP mini games. Nothing against PSP minis. I mean, those games are great too, but usually you would specify that. I mean, ideally you would have it in its own collection even. So, all right, so we got some more full-scale PSP over here. Sega Rally is a good one. Not, an easy one to emulate, though, by any means. Anything racing with PSP, I mean, you got to have some decent power to get through those. And from what we're seeing so far, Need for Speed, same deal. From what I'm seeing so far, I don't think this is going to be a phenomenal experience. MotoGP, same deal there. Virtua Tennis 3, Soul Calibur Broken Destiny, Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings, big fan of Indiana Jones. Lego Batman, Ratchet & Clank Size Matters, Pac-Man World 3, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Grand Theft Auto Vice City Story. So they have some pretty solid titles here. Pro Evolution Soccer. Then we're back up at the top where we started. So let me go in here and let's see. What do I want to jump into today? Let's go into Soul Calibur Broken Destiny. See what the experience is like here.
Only the strongest will be chosen.
I will make you suffer!
I'm not afraid anymore.
Battle 1. Fight! Battle 2. Fight!
All right, so, I mean, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but still definitely felt sluggish, a little bit glitchy, and there is a minor lag. I won't say that it's a major lag, but it's a minor one. Let's go into Tekken 6. And Tekken 6 is tough to actually emulate effectively, so let's give it a go.
Round 1.
All right, so you can see how terrible that is. It's just an absolute mess. That's what I was expecting it to be, honestly. So Soul Calibur Broken Destiny definitely was better than this was, but yeah, I mean, I did well in the match because I'm literally just mashing, in this case, A and X on the controller. Not good at all, though. You can see it's lagging out. I mean, there's just no timing to this whatsoever because it's so significantly lagged out. So we're going to go down to quit game. So we are, 3 collections in, and it's been pretty rough start to things. So over here we have Super Famicom, which is basically going to double, I think, as, unless there's Super Nintendo later on in here, which you'd have a lot of the same stuff. Super Famicom is going to be your Super Nintendo. So just looking at it here, it seems to be a decent selection of games. Again, no alphabetical order, no way to search from within a collection. You have to do that master list search. So, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. But I mean, it looks like, I mean, it's a lot of titles that I recognize. There's also a lot of foreign releases on here. So I'll give it, you know, credit there that it's all inclusive, but you know, I don't think I'll jump in and test anything out in here. we're kind of seeing right off the bat, what the experience has been like so far. But 608 games total for Super Famicom seems to be in line. I don't expect there to be a ton of duplicates within that collection because it's not a padded number of games. Next one over is Sega Mega Drive. So I do like the Terminator graphic there. I think that's pretty cool. Let's see what we got inside here. 790 games. So let's go through here. We got some Sonic and Knuckles up here. Some more Sonic. Some Earthworm Jim. Some WWF Raw in here. Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So it definitely seems like there's a lot of Sonic in here, which, I mean, is good. I'm a big Sonic fan myself, but I hope there's just not a ton of duplicates. Page Master. Wow, that takes me back. That is something I haven't thought about in a long time. I don't even really remember the game, and I remember the Macaulay Culkin movie. Pretty cool. Waterworld 2. That's why I like exploring older game collections. There's so much stuff that, I haven't thought about in literally decades, or, it's stuff that maybe I missed altogether and, get to kind of experience it all these years after it was released. So 790 games in here. Let's just jump into Sonic and Knuckles here. And actually, I think we saw Sonic and Knuckles earlier, so there might be some duplicates in here as well. Nothing would surprise me at this point. Let's jump in here and see. So we got another one of these. This is a double sort of error message here. I'm just going to hit OK because I tried to do an update before, or check for update, and it just brings me to the Google Play Store. All right, so that wasn't actually terrible there. That was actually probably the best experience so far with a game on this setup. So, yeah, I really didn't have much to say bad about that. I didn't feel like that was really laggy or anything like that. Did notice like one little minor hiccup, but nothing major. So, N64, oh boy. N64 is tough to emulate. So, diving into this, I mean, we're kind of in for it, I think. 128 games. Let's go through the game list, though. Let's see. We have Mario Kart 64 and all of our, Mario favorites in here. Let's see what this is all about. So, Wave Race 64. We definitely got some cool titles in here so far. We've got Pilot Wings 64. We've got some Turok. We've got, let's see, what else is popular? Bust a Moves are in here. A bunch of them. Super Bowling. Not seeing any. We got Wipeout 64. Doom 64. Duke Nukem. Not seeing any duplicates in here, and with that number 128, that's not really, a number that seems like they would be padding it with duplicates. So Cruisin' World. Now, Cruisin' is a racing franchise I absolutely love. I grew up playing these games, and I've emulated them a lot too. And I know that they're very tough to emulate effectively. Cruisin' World, however, is the easiest one. You have Cruisin' USA, Cruisin' World, and then Cruisin' Exotica. And Cruisin' World is definitely the easiest one to dive into. Let's see what the experience is like. You know what? Yeah, let's jump into it now, and then I'll continue through the list. Yeah, nothing. Can't do anything with that. It's so laggy that you can't even steer with this. Now, the controller here, it's a generic, typical controller that you get with a setup like this. I'm not going to nitpick it. The analog sticks are super sensitive. I mean, you either go all the way over or you don't, move it at all. It's either nothing or you're 100% in on, a left or right turn. So you're going to be prone to overcorrecting with something like this, but when there's even the slightest lag, and there's a significant lag here, even with the slightest lag, you're going to be constantly just back and forth, because, if you don't have that response time down 100%, you're just literally just going to be trying to find, a feeling in the game. So not playable in my opinion. So let's just get out of that one. Maybe we should start it off a little bit slower with N64, but let's continue on. We have some Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Bug's Life is a good one. Star Fox 64, tough to actually emulate that, so I would imagine the experience would be pretty laggy based on what we've seen. We've got some Killer Instinct Gold. The Rampage games are in here. Paperboy. We've got 007 GoldenEye. I wouldn't even want to try to attempt to, line up a shot in that, in all honesty. NFL Blitz, 2000 Special Edition. So 1080 snowboarding is a tough one to emulate as well. Doesn't seem like it would be, but I've run into issues with that on a lot of these sort of plug-and-play setups. So some Harvest Moon, Mortal Kombat. We've got Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. So we're at, 113 of 128. Ridge Racer 64. I'm not seeing anything Mario. Yeah, nothing at all. There we go. That's our last one. No Mario games at all in here for N64. And I'm not surprised. Those are really hard to emulate. Mario Kart 64 is probably the easiest one. Oftentimes, though, you will see, stutters, lags, delays, stuff like that if you have a setup that, isn't fully capable of emulating N64 effectively, and that seems to be the case here. Let's jump into Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, though. Let's test out the performance in one other game. This is one that really isn't difficult to emulate, so let's see what the experience is like over here. Guys, we're jumping into Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 now, and I just went in here and just removed the music. It does have music in here by default. I'm just removing it for copyright issues here on YouTube. So let's jump into the race. Oh, yeah, I can't even. It's so laggy that it's just like... and the analog stick doesn't actually turn anything. So the default controls are rough. D-pad doesn't turn anything either. Let's see if maybe the right analog stick turns. That's so weird. What the heck? That's so weird that the analog stick will actually navigate me like when I'm just skating forwards, but when I go to turn, I can't turn or anything. The only move I can do is a kickflip. Dude, I don't know. Man, this is terrible. I was trying to test this out. At this point, it's just like, what the hell? All right, so N64, throw that out. Game Boy Advance. What do we have for Game Boy Advance? We have 149 titles for Game Boy Advance. And, I mean, how can you screw Game Boy Advance up? So that actually wasn't terrible, but I mean, again, Game Boy Advance, not difficult to actually emulate. They, obviously have everything stretched to 16:9 aspect ratio, and over here, it looks really, really pixelated, but that's typical for stretching anything Game Boy, whether it's, original Game Boy or Game Boy Advance. Game Boy Advance would be the easiest one to stretch, but, even still, it's going to be pixelated, but, to be expected. can't complain about much in there. 149 titles for Game Boy Advance. Doesn't appear to be littered with duplicates, but who could really tell when, you know, everything's kind of thrown together with the, you know, the text list there. So let's back out of this collection, and we got Game Boy over here, original Game Boy. So let's see what we got in here. I'm sure same deal. Maybe not. 8,000 games for a Game Boy, original Game Boy, no less. There should be like, I feel like 600 games, give or take. Now, if you have multiple versions of games, let's say that there's some titles, and there are titles that there's a European release, there's a Japanese release, and there's a US release. Even if that's the case, 8,000, hell no, you would never have 8,000 games. Maybe there's hacks in here. I'm not seeing anything that's an obvious hack so far, though. But 8,000, like, even if you added up hacks, you know, European release, a Japanese release, and a US release, you would not come to 8,000. So it's hard to say because, again, you're not going to have, like, say that there's 10 Judge Dredds. You're not going to have 10 of them in a row because it's not in alphabetical order. So, yeah, I mean, 8,000 is wild. I'm just going to jump out of this collection. Let's go to the next one. Game Boy Color over here. Let's see, what do we have for Game Boy Color? 7,000. Oh, my God, 7,600. What the heck? Everything looks good. I'll give them that. I mean, text list on the left. Everything populates in very nicely on the right-hand side. But, damn, that's a lot of games. And so Game Boy Color, I'm a big fan of. I grew up playing Game Boy Color. I think there's like 614 games. And that's US releases. But same deal. Say that there was 3 versions of every game, and there's not. But say that there is. Say there's 3 versions of every game. That puts you at, what? I don't know, 1,800 games, give or take. I mean, 1,800 games would be well over what it should be. 7,600 is just insanity. There's just no way. And I'm not seeing anything that's like obviously, I don't know. I just don't know. I'm sure these work fine. I'm not even going to bother testing them. You know, if Game Boy Advance worked fine, then yeah, these are going to work fine. But why do we have so many? Like 7, whatever. At least they're advertising, 10,000 games. But I mean, you still end up with a system that has 30,000 games on it. So it just makes it that much harder to navigate, as if it wasn't hard enough already. But let's go over here. So next one is Capcom System 1. And it looks like Capcom System 1, 2, and 3. These should be really straightforward. There's usually in these collections, you're going to have like 30 to like 39, I think. And then Capcom System 3, I believe, is quite a bit less than that. So we'll jump in here. What the? Okay. Man, 3,696? Like, what? And these aren't even Capcom titles. Well, not all of them are anyways. Like, Capcom didn't make all these. I mean, I've seen some Namco games in here. There, look, perfect example. Namco right there on the screenshot. So, like, what was that? Altered Beast. I mean, there's definitely, sure, there's some Capcom games in here, but it's not a true Capcom, System 1 game. 3,696. All right, let's go to Capcom System 2. 3,528. And it's the same deal. It's just like random arcade games, it seems, just thrown together. All right. And they actually seem to be, at the moment, in alphabetical order. Nope, not anymore. How many Bang games were there? Yeah, so there's definitely duplicates in here. But again, with them not being in alphabetical order, they could throw in, 5,000, But with them not being in alphabetical order, I mean, they could have 20 duplicates of the same title. We wouldn't know about it unless they were putting them in a row, and they're not doing that. So, all right, let's get out of here. Let's see, Capcom System 3 now. I mean, what's it going to be, like 5,000 games again? almost 3,554. And again, same deal. It's just random games thrown in here. Arcade style games. But I mean, this is how like a MAME collection should look, or a classic arcade collection should look. And there we go. There's one of our 20 WWF WrestleFests. Some X-Men in here. There's Duplicate right there, side by side. Yeah, definitely all over the place here. So, I don't know. Let's jump into WrestleFest, though. I mean, at least WrestleFest should work, right? All right, so WrestleFest actually works pretty well. No issues there. It looks good on the screen too. So, credit goes where credit is due. And I'm confident. I mean, these aren't really difficult to emulate either, but I mean, I've said that about other things and they weren't very well put together. So, good experience here though. I'll give them that. Let's back out. So here we have Neo Geo. So maybe we'll jump into some Metal Slug. Let's see what we've got here. Oh my God. 3,775. Definitely not accurate for Neo Geo, and these aren't Neo Geo games. I don't doubt that there's some Neo Geo games in here, but again, it looks exactly like the Capcom system games. It looks like they just threw all your arcade collection, right into this as well. Yeah, I mean, and we've got duplicates in here, clear as day. Oh, man. All right, so, and there's definitely some Neo Geo in there. I just saw some Neo Geo, but clearly not Neo Geo specific. So here's MAME, and we've just seen MAME, four times? Yeah, literally four times over now. Neo Geo, and then Capcom 1, 2, and 3 was all very much MAME. So let's see what we have in here. So we have 3,843 games, and it looks identical to what we just saw. I mean, not the same order by any means, but the same style games. So in this one, we actually did see in the other collections. So, yeah, I mean, all those, at this rate, it should have just made one collection, called it MAME, and just threw everything in there. But the number of games included doesn't even match up. So, I don't have any doubts about these games performing, fairly well. But here we go. Here we have Metal Slug in here, where it should be in Neo Geo, but let's jump into Metal Slug and just see what the experience is like. All right, guys, so we just jumped out of this setup, and this was not what I was expecting. I was expecting some issues, but there was a lot of issues here. So where to begin? Let's talk about the layout. The layout, they had the right idea in mind. They have a text list on the left-hand side. They have a screenshot on the right-hand side. Everything does sync up with each title. There's no issue where you have Sonic matched up with a Mario game or anything out of whack like that. Everything's consistent there, but nothing's in alphabetical order. So as you go into each collection, it'll be just like a Z title to a D title to a G title to an A title to a H title. It's just all over the place. Nothing is in line. So when you look for a title, it's very hard to find it. You have to use the search function. Search function works very well, except for the fact that it's going to pull titles from your master list, not from the collection that you're within. So if you're on your master list and you type in Sonic, it's going to pull all your Sonic titles that are in the entire setup here, which is fine if that's what you're looking for. But let's say you go into Game Boy Color and you want to look for WWF titles. You're going to type in WWF, and it's going to give you the results for WWF for the entire setup here. So that doesn't sound so bad, right? How many titles could there be for, WWF within, what do we have here? About 10 different collections or so, give or take. Well, there's so many duplicates that WWF WrestleFest, for example, has 20 different listings. There's 20 different versions of the exact same game. So 19 additional for one title. That's 2 full pages that you're going to come up with in your search result dedicated to just one individual title. And if you're in Game Boy looking for WWF titles, that's 2 pages full of one game that's not even for that specific collection that you're looking for. So another way that is very difficult to navigate this. Now, they advertise 10,000 games here, but there's over 30,000 included on the setup. And I like the fact that they're being honest in a way. They're in a way being honest because there's probably truly 10,000 games, but there's so many duplicates that the duplicates account for 2/3 of the setup. So it's good that they're not trying to market this as 30,000 games. That would be a blatant lie. However, you still have 30,000 games that you have to comb through 20,000 duplicates to locate those 10,000 legit games. So it's still a lot of mud to crawl through to find what you're looking for. And a perfect example being WWF WrestleFest. We have 2 pages of just one title, and that's just one game. So, you could feasibly have that many duplicates for almost all of your titles. I don't think that there's 20 for every single title out there, but there certainly is a lot. So again, it makes it a really complicated process to find what you're looking for. Now let's talk about the performance here. Actually, before we talk about performance, let's talk about the layout one more time, because the collections, we have NES, Super Famicom, PlayStation, and PSP that are laid out effectively pretty well. All the titles in those collections belong in those collections. Capcom System 1 through 3, Neo Geo, and MAME. That's 5 collections right there, where it's just jumbled together with an absolute mess of titles that don't belong in there. We have Capcom System 1 through 3, which should be very basic collections, very easy to fill those. You wouldn't even have 100 games in each individual one of those collections. However, there's thousands upon thousands because they've just dumped in classic arcade games into all 3 of those. Same with Neo Geo and same with MAME. MAME should be that way because that's, the right collection for classic arcade games to be in. The other 4, should be much smaller collections, with just titles like Neo Geo should just be Neo Geo titles. The Capcom 1 should just be Capcom 1, same with 2 and 3. So again, it's adding tons of titles that you have to comb through to find what you're looking for, and you can't even find what you're looking for effectively because the search is not straightforward and nothing's in alphabetical order. So again, definitely not my cup of tea with the layout. Now, also, Game Boy Advance put together pretty nicely. Everything there laid out the way it should be. The right titles are in the right collection. Game Boy Color and Game Boy Original. Thousands and thousands and thousands of games in there. So Game Boy Original should only have like 6, actually I think it's less. I think it's like 500 and something titles for that collection. Game Boy Color should only have about 614, I think is how many individual titles were released, at least for the United States. And you're going to get multiple versions of titles. You have a European release, a Japanese release, and an American release, US release. So not every single title has, different region release, but let's say that they did. At 600 games, let's say that there's 3 of each one, which there's not, but let's say that there is, you would end up with what? Still under 2,000 games. So why does the Game Boy Color collection have 8,000 titles in it? That's insane. There's either tons of duplicates or there's tons of duplicates. That's the only solution here. I didn't see any games that didn't belong in there. So that just means that there's literally thousands upon thousands of extra games that serve us no purpose. It's just, again, more stuff that we have to comb through to find what we're looking for. So just an absolute disaster, like a crash and burn with the layout and all of that. Now let's talk about the performance finally. So performance here is all over the place. NES, I experienced minor lags and delays to the point where it does affect the gameplay, but it's not totally outrageous. So PlayStation 1, definitely have, significant lags and delays. They kind of come and go. It's not consistent, but definitely feels sluggish. And because that is so sluggish, I know PSP was going to be a disaster, and it was. We jumped into Soul Calibur, Broken Destiny. Not as bad as I expected it to be, but Tekken 6 certainly was a absolutely horrendous scene. We had lags, delays, to the point where it's just not even remotely playable. I mean, the only way that I won my match was because I was just mashing buttons, because there's no timing, there's no way to gauge timing, because the entire experience is lagged out. Now we jumped into Game Boy Advance here on camera. I also jumped into Game Boy Color and original Game Boy. All those games performed perfectly fine. But, I already talked about the layout. I won't touch on that again. Arcade games performed perfectly fine as well as I expected them to. They're not really difficult to emulate, but of course, also very hard to navigate. So let's talk about N64. N64, I had my concerns about going into this setup. N64 is very demanding to emulate those games effectively, and here we saw exactly that was the case. They were so lagged out that I could not even navigate in the two games that I showed you guys on camera today. Cruising World being one of those. Every time I tried to make a turn, there was like a 2-second lag or delay. It was also very glitchy, very sporadic, with each of the scenes. So every time I tried to make a left turn, by the time the car actually turned, it was time to try to correct that and go the opposite way. And you're just constantly, several seconds behind at all times, to the point where you can't get through the game at all. So having N64 on here made no sense because you cannot effectively emulate it. So just a horrendous experience here with the majority of the collections. The layout's trash. I wish I could say nice things about this because I love the idea of this. I love the idea of having a compact, game box that people can enjoy retro games on. But unfortunately, it falls short in almost every possible way. So definitely wouldn't recommend this. I'm not going to give you guys a link or anything like that. But let me know in the comment section what you guys thought of the setup. Also, let me know, what you guys thought of the content today. And if you did enjoy the content and me at least giving you a heads up on this product, please give me a thumbs up. And of course, hit subscribe to stay in the loop for all future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.